Welcome to Taking the Higher Road. I'm Leah Shaver, President and CEO of the National Transportation Institute. Each week, we interview industry experts and thought leaders who bring their insights to the driver life cycle as we discuss one of the industry's greatest challenges, driver and even technician recruiting and retention. I'd like to thank and highlight the show's valuable sponsors. Their dedication and commitment to the industry and to this show is greatly appreciated. Data is, of course, near and dear to my heart as head of NTI. Providing best-in-class data is one of the main components of our work with carriers, private fleets, shippers, after all. And in today's driver recruiting landscape, data is spilling everywhere. How can you make sense of it, let alone leverage it effectively? What are the data sets you should be focusing on? How can you put all of these streams of data to work in your driver recruiting and retention programs? Those are the key questions we're focusing on today in our conversation with Nathan Widener, Chief Data Officer at Career Now Brands, which I may refer to as Career Now Brands, or CNB, or any combination here within. One of the most innovative companies in the driver recruiting landscape today and a sponsor of this very show. So a big thank you to Nathan for joining the show and a sincere thank you to Career Now Brands for their continued support of Taking the Higher Road. I'm excited to share with you Nathan's insights into how fleets of all types can harness the right data to help pilot their recruiting and retention programs to greater success. Nathan, welcome to the show. I'm so glad to have you and your expertise.
Glad to be here, Leah. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Of course, I want to get into your background and how it propelled your work at Career Now. But first, let's dive right into a question. When we talk data, particularly when it comes to recruiting and retaining professional drivers and diesel techs, what are we even talking about? Define the term first for our listeners and explain why it's such a large focus of yours at Career Now.
Sure. Leah, big surprise, but data is everywhere, right? We all generate data in a steady stream just by going about our normal lives. Listen to music, you're generating data. Drive your car, you're generating data. Open a marketing email, near and dear to us, you're generating data. We have no shortage of data, that's for sure. The challenge, however, is really harnessing the right data at the right time and turning it into something useful. Activating the data, as we like to say. Activation could take many forms. It could be selecting the audiences for SMS blasts, or even mining the data for answers to why one recruitment market is performing better than another. Here at Career Now, data has always been an integral part of everything we do to deliver results for our clients. We host our own candidate-facing products such as CDL Job Now and Career School Now, which service millions of sessions each year. So we see our fair share of data, right? And we've always recognized the value of our data assets and continually invest in those technologies and skill sets to really allow us to activate data in a variety of ways. All of our products and services are deeply integrated with our data assets, whether that's finding matches for a hard-to-recruit diesel tech position or using historical hire data and geofence studies to really optimize a campaign. For instance, when we work with recruitment teams, we'll start by seeking to understand their goals, of course, but we like to go a step further to review their historical performance data and inform where and how we go to market, what tactics we believe will work best for drivers versus techs, and even consider other variables that can impact performance. We find this data-driven planning before deploying dollars in the market really makes a difference in results, and I think clients appreciate having a partner that understands and shares their goals.
All right, you mentioned goals a couple of times there. So what if that fleet or company that you're working with comes to you, but they don't have a clearly defined goal? They just want a body in the seat. What's the process look like then?
Sure. Great question. And I would add that not only do we see clients not have clearly defined goals, but we also see the inverse. Clients with really clear goals, but they struggle with measuring progress to that goal or diagnosing why they aren't able to really achieve their goals, right? In that initial discovery call with a fleet, we hear both ends of the spectrum. Here's my cost per hire. We need you to beat it. Or, hey, can you, we're still trying to establish our KPIs and we'd like your insight in how we can build some of those goals together. Both instances are perfectly fine, and it's a good challenge for that we like to embrace. In both cases, before we launch a campaign, we like to do a market analysis where we map out a fleet's historical hires, where their terminals or orientation locations are, and do an analysis to really understand where they're seeing success and where they may be having some challenges getting a good return on their marketing spend. We can even then overlay our database of marketable drivers and historical results and bring in even third-party data like age bands and our data such as past engagement results. All of this analysis really put together helps us paint a picture of what we might expect and help set or even reset client goals after we go through that exercise. And our team will then design a marketing plan built around those goals, leveraging various tactics and audience strategies to really deliver results.
I love when someone is by far geekier than we are in terms of data. So thank you for that. I want to talk about your outcomes, your focus on outcomes, aka hires, and the strategy when working with fleet customers works backwards from defining those outcomes. So tell us about that process and how your emphasis on data ties into a strategy.
No, that's right. The marketing plan we design may be great at delivering quality leads, but where they're needed, but there's really no guarantee that's going to convert to hires, right? So also key to success is really understanding each carrier's specific recruitment process and how they monitor those processes, ideally with metrics and data that they can share with us in an automated fashion. For instance, all drivers need to fill out a full app and then speak with a recruiter, right? That's 2 milestones right there. And if a recruiter really thinks about their own recruitment process or really a funnel, there are several more milestones such as interview schedule, position offered, and oftentimes those are unique to each carrier. But ideally, we construct this funnel where hires, are at the bottom of the funnel, and at the very top, we've got our marketing efforts, lead acquisition at the very top. And the more visibility you can glean into each one of those milestones along the way, the better we'll be at spotting issues. We'll actually visualize this data for our clients that provide it, and it's very telling because you can literally see where the funnel goes from this nice wide shape to collapsing down to this little tiny pinch point. And what's surprising is that for many is that off that pinch point, it's not really solved by spending more money or shifting marketing funds, which is often the case, but actually by looking at the process itself. Sadly, sometimes I see cases where we did not have visibility of the milestone data. The client is monitoring, downstream hires and telling us, hey, I need more hires. So we go ahead and ramp up more spend and put more against it. But really what we've done is actually exacerbate the issue because now we've created more and more activity at a spot where you've created a bit of a log jam. So we can help clients solve some of these problems, whether it be nurturing leads to full app or whatever it might be. But all of these solutions, regardless what they are, they rely on timely, accurate data to really feed them.
So true. I keep smiling because you're mentioning hiring funnel, and we talk a lot about that at NTI. In fact, our most requested slide during and after a presentation is a representation within a hiring funnel. So we should really take these two pictures and put them together and see just how closely we're both operating. I want to take a step back and talk about your background and how it led to your work in building the data warehouse that's become so important to what Career Now Brands does and offers. So tell us how you first started getting into data compilation and analysis in your career, how you wound up at CMB, how you put that work into the pipeline and build up a company's data prowess.
Sure. Well, I have a computer science degree from University of Michigan, go blue. And at risk of dating myself, this was long before there were advanced analytics and data science degrees like there are today. So you had a choice between applied mathematics, computer science, or computer engineering. Those are the 3 options we had. And I wasn't all that into math, and I didn't like building computers. So computer science it was. So I enjoyed it, though. It was a great program. And after school, I spent many years at marketing agencies working with lead data, but in the auto space. And there I really got a chance to analyze marketing efforts for Ford and General Motors. And I had some really good mentors along the way that taught me some core lessons that really carried with me today. Try to make decisions driven by data whenever possible, right? Fail fast, which is really just adopt a learning culture, adaptive culture to marketing. And this is such a fast changing industry that you really do need to be trying the next tactic, even if your current tactics aren't working. So that was something that I felt was really good. So we carry that through here too, is fail fast. And then, data democratization, which is probably the single most powerful concept to advancing an organization's data and analytic capabilities, which is really just means, just as it sounds, opening up data for everyone to use. So it's less about skills and your role and more about, hey, the data is there, and if you can find a use for it, let's do that. And what that really does is really propel people, empower people to be able to work with data in new ways and come up with ways that others may not be thinking of. So that was a big one. And I came to CMB in 2015, so it's almost 10 years now. And this was a critical time. The company was starting to then begin focusing on experienced driver markets and working with fleets. And they were having success with CDL schools, providing student leads. But we're just starting to get into the carrier side of the business, working with experienced drivers. What I saw was a great opportunity, not just in their products, but that they had their own products that were generating a small mountain of data, a really great asset, especially if structured and activated appropriately. And CMB was all aboard with spending and into its data capabilities. And really in just a span of a few years, we went from a couple of disparate databases, and some of it was embarrassingly was on Google Documents, to where we are now, a world-class data warehouse. And it's built on Snowflake, AWS, and we have an awesome team of data engineers, architects, and analysts from all over the world. As the company grew, I personally took a few different positions along the way. Some are more data-centric to more operations positions. But the commonality between all of those was a passion for data-driven practices and data democracy, those lessons I pulled from earlier. So I'm really proud of what we have built here. And I get really excited about the future, just seeing what we can do as a team as we continually level up. So it's fun to be a part of all this.
It sounds fun. You aren't just working in data. You also spend time leading operations. And we've talked a lot about data today. Gathering, sorting, housing, sharing, though you use a lot better adjectives when you refer to it, probably because it's your passion. I assume part of your work experience has been leading folks that you work with to take the data you provide and make decisions, perform better at a higher level, keep your clients more informed. I say all of that because I wonder, how can our carrier customers leverage data effectively? Not only to make decisions, but to communicate their purpose, their value, and also what they in turn need from their customers and vendors.
Great. Well, we really have built a data-driven org right from the start. Everyone here uses data in their decision-making. And I like the fact that you use the word communicate, because that's such a key element to extracting value from data. Data can be a great communication tool. You know, if a picture is worth 1,000 words, I say a good chart is worth 1,000,000, especially if we're talking about marketing spend. And so to help clients make decisions with their data, we provide near real-time reporting on their campaign performance and map everything back to client milestones that matter to them. Often that's hires again, but again, we want to visualize and monitor that entire recruitment funnel if they'll let us, and that helps us to identify any pinch points in the funnel, and that in turn allows us all, CMB and the client, to pivot quickly. But going beyond even decision making, if we really start to zoom out, everyone in this industry is mostly focused on the same goal: recruiting and retaining the best drivers and techs, and doing it cost effectively, right? And this all requires like an orchestration, if you will, between the customer all the way down the value chain to the vendors. Traditional means of communicating the hire needs and status via email and communication, while effective, comes with its own inefficiencies inherent to humans. But if we think about ways to introduce automated or semi-automated decision-making processes at those company-to-company interactions, and using data as a medium between those, we not only save money in terms of time spent making these decisions, but we can make the decisions themselves faster. So we'll be faster to market. And if we're talking about marketing dollars, time really is money. And I would say some clients have really embraced this concept head on, and really they encourage us to subscribe to their ATS APIs, and so that we're all in tune with recruitment funnel and reacting accordingly at the applicant level. They really recognize that the speed to decision-making and reducing some of that human bias translates to a lower cost per hire. But I also see the other side of that. I think carriers sometimes struggle with the idea of sharing data, or the company policies might make it difficult to navigate that agreement. And I think that's a real challenge in the industry, and for good reason. You know, some marketers can be bad actors, and we see that in all industries, not just ours. So companies are naturally nervous to share data only to find out it was remarketed, monetized, or worse, right? And that's an understandable concern, but I think that that's one that can be overcome with strong data sharing agreements. Agreements that really stipulate that data is only going to be used for this purpose, for optimization, it's not going to be remarketed, and that sort of thing. So all said, I think data sharing, while being a challenge, will also be a big differentiator for companies that really embrace it and seek partnerships with their customers and vendors.
I agree. I love the word partnership as well. Another thing that you've mentioned to me is encouraging data literacy, both internally at Career Now with your people and within recruiting departments at fleets that you work with. So tell us more about that, the importance, the means, what it looks like. Let's say you're working with a recruiting department at a carrier.
Sure. Well, I like to say that we are all analysts and we all speak data, just all in different dialects, right? And so data literacy is a broad term, but as it relates to recruiting, I like to define it as knowing how to interpret charts and tables, identifying patterns and trends, understanding the relationships between data, understanding the relationships between real world actions and how that translates to data, because data is really just a mirror of those real world activities. And then also communicating and sharing our findings using data. When I started in this field, data literacy was really a limited capability. It existed in pockets in an org. You often had data geeks that were your go-to people for data answers. Hey, can you pull this query for me? Hey, I need you to answer this thing for you. Things have really changed, right? I think employer expectations of employees have changed, and they expect them to have more of these abilities to interpret a chart, read data, not necessarily build these things. You still have people that are going to create those things, but being literate and understanding what you're looking at and how that translates into real world activity is key. And I think these skills are key to almost any role these days, but I think it rings true, especially true for recruiters. Just because you know it's better than doing guesswork, right? And analyzing those metrics like time to hire or lead to hire ratios really can help you identify bottlenecks in the process. So, and I find that just, again, that word communicate with metrics and insights is much easier when the team understands what is really driving those metrics.
Totally true. And as you said, it's interesting the timing that you mentioned of 10 years and things changing within the CMB org, but really that's a turning point, I think, also in the industry and how folks we're looking at data then and versus what they were being asked to provide in terms of a view of data. And certainly, as you know, there's still a number of folks that are behind in this scale. And why we wanted you to be on with us, because understanding the data is so key, but also knowing what to do with it and knowing how to make your case with it is a whole other story in order to meet goals, to make new goals, to prove that you met your goals, etc. So I want to tie in the data piece of your work in terms of a recruiting marketing perspective at Career Now. Many companies in the industry work with a few larger vendors. Some of them replicate the same landing page, the same job ads, the same details and content over and over again, meaning many fleets' marketing presence for all drivers looks the same, says the same things, and sometimes even on the same day, which just baffles me when I see that. You had a great line, which I love, referring to that approach, and that's the post and pray. So how is Career Now Brand's approach different than post and pray? And how does the data piece tie into the marketing piece here?
Yeah, great question. So there are several more players in the space, especially post-COVID. And it seems like many are going for more of a kind of a niche play, focusing on a few capabilities and trying to do those really well, Google, programmatic, career sites, or others. And thinking that you do those few things really well, it can really create the desired results. It can in some cases, but at CMB, we're really more hyper-focused on the client outcomes, and we understand each fleet is unique, right? Different cultures, values, all make up a brand identity, and that identity should be front and center, because that's really what candidates see, and that's what they're going to interact with, and it's, they can see between the lines. They can read and figure out the fact that this is just something that's been copy and pasted. And I also would say that in our roles at CMB, we're encouraged to really test various tactics, anything we need to do to get the results. Basically, the post and pray method doesn't fly here. Instead, our teams are trained to pull from many levers, right? And we have a large toolbox. Sometimes these levers are lead acquisition related, such as A/B testing and landing page copy. And so we might even have two different iterations for the same client, testing out that copy. Or to take the form of process outsourcing to assist with down funnel milestones. Ultimately, our team has an extensive tool set and one that goes well beyond just lead acquisition. So we also get into brand awareness, brand identity. We also do a lot of the same things that you see with career sites and programmatic, but we also go beyond that into nurturing products and things like that. So that way we've got the right tool for the job, basically. And of course, all this orchestration that we do is really monitored closely through, you guessed it, reporting, right? And when we bring all that stuff together, we monitor it closely. We're able to produce good results for clients and something that really is unique for them.
Well, you do this across multiple verticals and industries. So what are they and how does that work strengthen or enhance the recruiting component of the business?
Great question as well. So we have a very unique asset at Career Now Brands. In 2010, when we first launched the business, we started with Career Now, which was our solution for CDL, HVAC, mechanic, welding, and electrical schools. So we were finding CDL student leads. And our CDL Career Now product was the very first one. And we've always been a big proponent of skilled trades and believe there's heavy demand to educate America's future workforce in those types of areas, right? But I would also say that marketing, captivating this audience for trade schools has also allowed us to create a great audience that aligns nicely with employment needs, kind of tangential to truck drivers, if you will. So welders, electricians, diesel and auto mechanics, and more. So since then, though, we've grown into other services to include warehouse and retail recruitment. Again, areas that we were kind of uniquely positioned for, given our sizable market audience in those areas.
Yeah, there has to be some overlap as well in some of those, whether it be characteristics of the work or the audience that you're getting in front of. I want to talk about the current market that we're in and what you're seeing, how the freight market cycle has changed fleet's approach to recruiting, and of course, what insights you're gleaning from the data that you're examining. So let's break it up into a few questions. First, I'm curious what you're seeing in terms of change in this correction cycle with fleets and what their needs are, what they're communicating to you, how their approach to hiring has changed. Can you give us some insights as to what's different now than in the height of the hiring surge? I have to believe that, for example, quality over quantity has risen to be a top ask.
Yes. And what a change it's really been. It used to be volume, that's for sure. But now it's about attracting and retaining the quote unquote right driver. Carriers can be more selective and they're analyzing historical data closer than ever, really. Really looking to find that needle in the haystack, so to speak. We even hear clients are starting to use machine learning algorithms to predict which candidates are most likely to succeed and stay with the company. Again, kind of seeking that right driver. But I think that this shift towards hyper-targeted campaigns, whether it's seeking to find specific driver skill sets, experience levels, or even alignment with the company's value and culture, is all done with this hopes of reducing turnover, right? And even the incentives have changed quite a bit. The signing bonuses that we saw in 21, 22 have given way to more retention-based incentives. All said, I think carriers are becoming more in tune with what will keep drivers and techs, and I think that's a theme that will probably stick around. But zooming out, it seems everyone is focused on cost reduction and seeking efficiencies in process. So one thing we do notice is that while budgets are reduced, one area of growth we see is with outsourcing. Some of the recruiter processes and we call them kind of RPO services here, recruiter process outsourcing. As carriers really seek to kind of shave some of those internal costs and outsource some of those kind of mid-funnel activities, lead to full app conversion and things along that line, and even background checks. But we've been working with them on those cases and leveraging our data and tech to help them out whenever we can. But been a definite shift for sure.
Besides outsourcing, are there any other new trends or innovations in driver recruiting and hiring that might have emerged that you think will stick around or continue to become more prevalent no matter what happens in the freight market?
Yeah, that's a great one too. I think you've noted before that this is such a cyclical industry, and at this point in the cycle, everyone's kind of focused on retention and recruiting the right driver. Some of that will change in time, especially as we drain kind of the existing experienced driver pool and start to hit diminishing returns. But I think some of those trends that are coming out of the cycle that will still stay there. The retention story, I think, is still going to be there. But I think there's parts of that will stick out. So things like a stronger emphasis on branding and social media, showcasing things like community outreach programs, how a carrier is connected to its family drivers and the community they serve. I think that will be important. Highlighting driver testimonials and connecting with drivers on a deeper sense of company values will probably be key too. One carrier we work with they play a series of driver testimonials when you're put on hold waiting for a recruiter, which I think is great. I don't know about you, I don't like to wait, but if I'm going to be put on hold, I would much rather hear driver experiences and about the company than listening to some hold music. also kind of underneath this retention thing, I think referrals, the A players attract other A players. It's a low cost method of attracting good talent. And I think that's going to be something that will probably stick around for a bit longer too. But look at, so on the other side, looking at recruitment, I see some carriers moving towards conversational recruiting lately. So things like chatbots, more text. Some are even using like video calls with candidates. So I think we're going to see less outbound initiatives and more inbound initiatives and more conversational type initiatives that will stick around. And of course, I can't talk data without at least talking AI. And we do see some usage of AI tools to screen applicants, and I think that will probably evolve and get better over time.
Cool. Thanks for the glimpse. Last question, we're going to end it here. We've talked about the recent past, but let's talk about the future, both near term and longer term. In your view, internally at Career Now, what are you preparing for in terms of the future of driver recruiting? What's likely to change or evolve from a marketing and data perspective? AKA, what should our listeners be preparing for in the coming years for from a recruiting perspective?
Absolutely. Well, focusing on data and audience management, data privacy, and recruitment advancements are going to be some of our key initiatives for the future, right? And we kind of plan out on a one to 2 year kind of short term, as well as like a 3 to 5 year out plan. I think in the short term, though, in the next 1 to 2 years, we're going to see all these recent regulations we had around third-party data usage, cookies and things of that nature, will act as kind of a catalyst, frankly, to drive a stronger emphasis on data management, especially as it pertains to zero-party and first-party data. What the heck am I talking about there? That's data that's collected directly from your users. And I think that will remain a priority for everyone in absence of that third-party data. So that's going to mean better collection and management of that first-party data to make it actionable. And that also means building trust with candidates by being transparent about how that data is going to be used, ensuring our info is protected. And for us, this is a significant focus for us, and this is really kind of a multi-year plan as we continue to evolve audience segmentation, constantly with that eye on activating the right data at the right time. And I also think that that data combined with highly targeted recruitment strategies, as we talked about before, is going to actually start driving a deeper level personalization, deeper than we've ever seen before. If we're really looking for a needle in the haystack, the combination of well-organized first-party data, advanced analytics, and personalization is going to be how we find them. And of course, as we speak about recent regulations surrounding third-party data usage, I think we'll continue to see additional data privacy regulations like CCPA, GDPR, that sort of thing. For recruiters and vendors that have been working toward better first-party data management, this is not going to be much of a challenge, but it is something that we have to kind of keep a close eye out and see what that will impact for us. Looking further out, getting out to beyond 2 years, I think that usage of machine learning tools will finally hit mainstream. I know many of these are dubbed as AI for marketing purposes, but whether it's machine learning or AI, they're going to augment many of our recruitment processes and simplify decision-making. So far, what we've seen so far is admittedly lackluster, and it isn't always AI, but we really are right on the cusp of AI becoming ubiquitous like data is today. And here at CMB, we do leverage AI as a supportive tool in the sourcing process. And as I mentioned a moment ago, we're seeing some carriers use AI in the screening process. And I think that will continue to evolve and move into other areas such as onboarding, that sort of thing. And I'll go on a limb and say that make a prediction about the actual application process. I suspect we'll probably see some efforts to simplify the application process to make it more frictionless. And we're also seeing we're seeing some ATSs integrate tighter with HRMSs or traditional HR systems and onboarding tools. So I think all of that's going to start to kind of create a scenario where we're going to see some more synergies between those products, and that's going to benefit the candidate at the end of the day with a smoother process. And of course, I think predictive analytics is going to take a larger seat. I'm going to say something about data. We've seen a continued shift from aggregated reporting, which is really just telling us what happened, but often not why or what we should do. And I think we're going to start to see a stronger placement on advanced analytics or predictive analytics. They'll tell us a bit more of prescribing actions of what we should do next. So forecasting higher needs and identifying less than obvious trends. This will really allow fleets to be more proactive in addressing those shortages. And I think we'll also see kind of more what-if analysis and forecasts that go along with that as well. So data for the win, I would like to say.
Data for the win. Might have to change the title of this episode. I want to thank you again, Nathan, for joining me and sharing all of this captivating information with our audience. You make data interesting, and I'd like to think that we have that in common.
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Taking the Higher Road. Stay tuned for next week's show when Jeremy Raymer returns to the episode with another fantastic conversation in this space. Please know that your feedback is very important to us, and your kind reviews keep us on the hunt for more great talent to put in front of you. Please remember to rate and review Taking the Higher Road on whatever platform you are using to listen. Once again, a special thanks to our sponsors of today's show. Until next time, thank you for taking the higher road.